Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion recorded on June 22nd, 2023, recording at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including a new tropical cyclone that has formed in the Atlantic Basin, Tropical Depression 4. We got a rare situation where we got two twin tropical systems in the main development region, so let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this morning, we noticed that it is quite busy out there for the latter part of June. First of all, we have Tropical Storm Bret located near Barbados at this point, moving into the Caribbean. We have newly designated Tropical Depression 4 located to the southeast of Bret. And we have a new tropical wave that has emerged off the coast of Africa during the past couple of days. While not officially being tagged yet by NHC, this does have a possibility to develop as it stays at relatively low latitudes and moves westward over the next several days, and additional tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa. Starting off with Tropical Storm Bret this morning. The storm has intensified to 70 miles per hour during last night and is now moving in and closer towards the Lesser Antilles, with some rainfall already starting to begin here at Barbados in just a little while. However, we noticed the structure of the storm this morning is a lot less organized than it was last night. The low-level circulation is actually located here at the very end of the frame right here, and the deep convection is located well off towards the north and east. You can actually see here that the low-level circulation is again beginning to become decoupled from the rest of the mid-level circulation and the storm as this nears the island of Barbados, which is roughly about right here. So the storm is going to continue moving westward over the next couple of days, and let's go ahead and look at the track forecast for the storm. Looking at the overall track forecast, the storm's intensity right now is at 70 miles per hour, although I do have questions in terms of that intensity as of 11 a.m. due to the recon, which we'll show here in a minute. But irregardless, this is a strong tropical storm according to the National Hurricane Center. We have a tropical storm watch for Barbados, and this storm will continue moving westward over the course of the next day or so. And this is expected to cross into the island chain late tonight into tomorrow morning. And then that's where things will begin to rapidly change, and the storm is expected to weaken here into a remnant low late Saturday night into Sunday morning. Looking at the watch warning map, there is a tropical storm warning for the remainder of the watch area, except for down south. And we do also have a hurricane watch that has been issued for St. Lucia as well. Tropical storm watch for Dominica as well, again, and a tropical storm watch for Barbados, and a hurricane watch for St. Lucia. Again, the storm is near hurricane intensity, but it is unlikely to strengthen into a hurricane. However, with it being at 70 miles per hour, there is the necessity for a hurricane watch at this point, but not really expecting any change in the impacts as the storm moves through. Well, it is aircraft reconnaissance data shows the storm beginning to weaken now, actually kind of taking a west-southwest dive here. And the latest center pass is located right here. This is the island of Barbados. We'll show that. The island of Barbados is right here. And the storm is kind of taking a west-southwest dive. And so it is entirely possible that the center of circulation may actually pass over Barbados or just very near and to the south of Barbados. This seems to be a short-term track, and it will likely resume its westerly trajectory at some point, which could take it over the island of Barbados. But either way, tropical storm conditions are being felt more than so on the northern side here of the circulation, with those enhanced trade winds blowing from east to west. And so you've got enhanced flow on the northern side, and our winds today around this northern side are roughly about 45 to 70 miles per hour in some of those heavier convective bands. So again, the storm is on a weakening trend, which is certainly some good news to the islands, but it will bring some beneficial rainfall to some of these areas. And again, the storm then is likely to cross into the Caribbean, where it is set to die on Saturday. So that's most of the forecasting done with this storm, and we're now going to take our attention to Tropical Depression 4. Shifting gears here and talking about Tropical Depression 4 this morning, we notice a storm that has become better defined in the past 24 hours and now presents itself with sustained convection, albeit in a very small semicircle here on the western side. If we zoom in here, you can very clearly see that there is a low-level spin to the storm today, and the microwave and scatterometer passes have confirmed that this is indeed a closed low-level circulation, and so the Hurricane Center has now initiated advisories on Tropical Depression 4. We notice that the convection is still mainly off towards the western side of the circulation, and that is in response due to a little bit of mid-level shear coming out of the easterly direction here. So there's a little bit of shear somewhat imparted here from the tropical easterly jet that is out here across Africa. But we notice that there is some outflow trying to expand now on the northern side of the storm. Lots of dry air, though, still on the eastern side. So this is what's going to prevent at least significant intensification during the next couple of days. Here is a look at the track forecast for Tropical Depression 4 as of 11 a.m. This is 1,007 millibars and 35 miles per hour. This is expected to intensify into Tropical Storm Sydney over the next couple of hours. And this is a rare case where we'll have two simultaneous June tropical cyclones in the main development region. And this is very unusual and could be a harbinger of what is likely to occur later in the hurricane season. But you can see here this track keeps it on a west-northwesterly trajectory throughout the next couple of days, and does bring it here awfully close to the northern part of the island chain by Sunday and Monday before crossing north of Puerto Rico and becoming a tropical depression as it battles Shear on Tuesday. So we're going to be watching this system very carefully. Let's go ahead and look at what the models have to say with that. We're going to go ahead and take a look here at the H-Wharf 200 millibar winds, so at the very top of the atmosphere across this system. We've looked at this extensively during the last couple of days for Bret, and now we're going to take a look at for future Sydney here. So here's our system today. Again, you can very clearly see those east to west winds here in the MDR and the upper levels, pushing those thunderstorm tops to the western side of the circulation today. And we notice what's going to be impacting our storm throughout the next several days. We've got a belt of westerly flow here, west to east winds aloft. And as our storm begins to move west-northwest, it's going to encounter this wind shear to a higher degree. So as we go ahead and run this forward throughout the next several days, our storm is in a relatively low to somewhat moderate shear environment, which does support the theory and idea for intensification during the next couple of days. However, we notice here within about 36 hours, we've got a trough digging down here into the Caribbean and the Atlantic Basin. And as our storm begins to feel this trough, it's going to start to turn the storm more towards the north, and then watch what happens. So the storm deepens, and in this case, it develops a hurricane on the forecast model. But we notice what happens is that as we start to get the storm closer to the shear, it starts to rapidly weaken out. And this is just a very bare bones weak tropical storm or depression at this time, and it continues to further weaken as the storm continues to battle this shear. So throughout the next about 5 to 6 days, this environment really is not going to change a whole lot, as there is fairly good agreement of this trough digging in here. Now, within about 5 days or so, a lot is going to matter on where the storm actually is. If we look here at the GFS 200 millibar wind, we notice here on the GFS forecast, at least in the 6Z run, the storm is able to actually undergo an additional bout of intensification in the subtropics as it starts to interact with a trough towards the north and is put in a more favorable environment for intensification. And so our storm actually becomes a fairly potent hurricane out here in the subtropical Atlantic. This is also a possibility, and it just really depends where our storm is going to be within this time. So let's go ahead and look at the model track forecasts for the storm. So looking here at the model track forecast, again, this is still a little uncertain at this point as our storm is still in the very early stages of formation. However, this general consensus off towards the west-northwest is likely for the next several days. And then the storm is going to find itself kind of in a very split pattern where some of the forecast guidance continues to turn the storm up and to the north closer to affecting Bermuda, which is right here where I'm circling. And some of the guidance continues to take this more on a shallow westerly trajectory throughout the next couple of days. If you look at the overall GFS ensemble forecast, this continues to, again, have more of that west-northwesterly trajectory throughout the next several days. And again, this is where the deterministic GFS and the ensembles differ. You can see where the deterministic run carries this off well towards the north and actually turns the east of Bermuda, which is here, while the general consensus on the GFS ensemble keeps it roughly to the west of there before the mean, but really before the ensemble mean begins to turn the storm up generally more towards the north. And so we're going to have to watch for our friends out here and in Bermuda. And I wouldn't even rule out the possibility that this sneaks a little bit further west if it's weaker over the next couple of days. And again, for our friends here in the Turks and Caicos and the northern part of the island chain, this is just something to monitor, but it is not likely that this thing will sneak that far west to affect the Turks and Caicos. And certainly right now, I don't think the southeastern United States is going to have to worry about this storm, at least as of this time, but certainly continue to check back on the forecasts with the storm. What we're looking at here is the GFS 500 millibar geopotential height. So we're looking up at about 18,400 feet in the atmosphere, looking at the strengths and the departures from average based on the anomalies of the ridges and the troughs in the atmosphere. So again, kind of generally speaking right now, you've got a weakening area of high pressure in the subtropical Atlantic, and this is, again, what's generally driving Bret off towards the west here over the next couple of days. But look at where Tropical Depression 4 is currently located, and what's going to allow it to gain latitude is this troughing in the mid and upper levels here, along with a trough and a kind of a area of troughiness. Generally, it is expected to move into the basin here very shortly. This is going to contribute towards our storm, generally heading more off towards the north and west here throughout the next several days. And here on the GFS, there is something interesting that happens here. We notice that we generally have a blocking pattern that is setting up over the kind of the Canadian Maritimes and the high seas of the Atlantic. And this would actually stop a storm from just turning its way out to sea fairly quickly. But instead, we've got a ridge over Texas that has kind of been sitting here for the last several days. And we've kind of got this general troughiness going on across the east coast of the U.S. This is going to be something to monitor as our storm generally grows closer. And if it does turn up into this region, this area of low pressure could help to kind of grab it and turn it back towards the west ever so slightly. And that's how this system could end up posing a threat towards portions of the northeast U.S. or the Canadian Maritimes. It's way too early to speculate if that's going to happen, but based on this pattern, that's just one way that is feasible. All right, so just continue to monitor the forecast on that, but nothing too concerning, at least as of right now. So it is staying relatively busy across the tropics. We're also watching an additional system or systems that will be coming off the coast of Africa during the next couple of days. Again, right now, there's nothing official from the National Hurricane Center, but we will continue to monitor it as always. So with that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, God bless, take care. I am Mike Romali, and I'll be back with another update later this evening.